Bill Bullard with RCAF USA, the voice of the independent cattle producer in the United States of America. Well, have you ever felt like an underdog? Like your adversaries are so well funded, so well connected, and so powerful that no matter what you might do, you know darn well nothing will change. Well, get over it, because we have work to do. And so let me lay out this story. Over 100 years ago, Congress was concerned that monopolistic beef packers were forcing farmers and ranchers out of business, and citizens were going to be faced with artificially high beef prices or perhaps even food shortages. So they passed what was called the Packers and Stockyards Act of 1921. Now, the act protected both ranchers and citizens by preventing monopolies in our food system and preventing packers from engaging in anti-competitive conduct. Now, if this act had been properly enforced, you wouldn't have just 4 big packers controlling 85% of the fed cattle market. You wouldn't have witnessed the loss of nearly 45% of all our nation's ranchers. And you wouldn't have gone to your grocery store a couple of years ago to find the beef shelves empty. None of that would have happened if the Packers and Stockyards Act had been enforced for the past 100 years. But it wasn't. Instead, the multinational beef packers bought out or forced out most all of the small and mid-sized beef packers, and they concentrated and consolidated our beef supply chain until it became the skeletonized system it is today, with fewer packers, fewer ranchers, and fewer opportunities for both cattle producers and citizens. So now that our industry shrank almost beyond recognition, Congress and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, or USDA, are beginning to understand the terrible mistake they made by not enforcing the Packers and Stockyards Act. So now many in Congress began calling for investigations by the U.S. Department of Justice into the U.S. beef supply chain. They wanted to know what happened. Why were consumers paying record prices for beef while ranchers continued to go broke? Well, it recently dawned on the USDA that perhaps they should also shake the dust off the Packers and Stockyards Act and actually begin to write the rules needed to implement and properly enforce the act. It took them only 100 years before they figured out they'd been asleep at the wheel. So now the USDA is actually writing the rules to implement and enforce the act. And we should insert a hallelujah about right here. But guess what's happening right now? The multinational beef packers and all their allies don't want the USDA to write rules that would stop them from engaging in unfair, deceptive, or unjustly discriminatory practices. Nor do they want rules and regulations to prevent them from giving their friends undue preferences or advantages. Nor do they want ranchers to be able to protect their livelihoods by filing a lawsuit should the packers not follow the law. And so the multinational beef packers and all their allies went to Congress and told them to stop the USDA from writing rules to implement the Packers and Stockyards Act. And guess what? Their friends in Congress did exactly what they were told. The U.S. House of Representatives drafted language in the fiscal year 2024 appropriations bill that stops the USDA dead in its tracks. The language prohibits the USDA from spending any money to write the rules to implement and enforce the Packers and Stockyards Act. Now, you should be really angry that the multinational beef packers and their allies have so much power in Congress that they can get so many congressmen and congresswomen to do their bidding. Wouldn't it be nice if we could put a stop to this? Well, with your help, we can. You see, the fiscal year 2024 appropriations bill is now going to be voted on in the U.S. Senate. And if you call your 2 U.S. senators and tell them to delete any language in the appropriations bill that would prevent the USDA from writing rules that protect ranchers and consumers, then you and I can stop this madness. And call your U.S. congressman or congresswoman too. Tell them how disappointed you are that they are catering to the big packers and ignoring American ranchers and citizens. Tell them to start listening to the people. You know, if you tell them enough, they'll begin to listen to you. So you're only an underdog under 2 conditions. The first would be if you quit. And the second would be if you don't lift a finger to win. And so I'm asking you to lift your finger. Dial your phone and call your member of Congress and tell them enough is enough. Ranchers deserve to have a competitive marketplace, not one distorted by monopolies. And they deserve the opportunity to stay in business. And at the same time, every citizen deserves an abundant, wholesome, and affordable food supply that never runs short. If we work together, we will win both. And thank you for your help. And if you don't know how to reach your members of Congress, then write this number down: 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121. Just call that number and ask for any member of Congress by their name. With that, have a productive week. Thank you and goodbye.